Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Samantha Johnson, and I am the Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement at University of Colorado Boulder's Leeds School of Business. Leeds is a top business school offering undergraduate, MBA, MS, and PhD programs and has an alumni network of over 41,000 strong living and working around the world. We're excited to have John Hill presenting on leveraging LinkedIn for today's webinar. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin. First, if you have any questions now or during the presentation that you would like to ask John, please send those questions through the chat interface. I will monitor those questions as they are submitted, and John will respond to them at the end of the presentation. As a reminder, for optimum audio quality, we do have everyone on mute except for myself and our speaker. If you experience any technical difficulties during this webinar, please notify us through the chat interface, and one of our support specialists will be in touch with you. Lastly, a link to access the webinar recording will be sent to all registrants later today, along with a survey link. Now, I'd like to introduce today's speaker. John Hill traded one passion for another, which led him to leave Michigan State University to become the higher education evangelist at LinkedIn. He did this one more time, moving from LinkedIn to become the network catalyst for Techstars. Building relationships and connecting people with opportunity are at his core. At Techstars, he's charged with supporting and growing a global network of tech entrepreneurs, mentors, and investors who surround them and the Techstars team. As a speaker, John often implores others to have the audacity to dream big. Techstars opened the door for him to live that mantra while supporting others to do the same. Welcome, John, and thank you so much for being here.
Hey, I appreciate it, Samantha. Thank you so much for hosting me. And to build a little bit upon what Samantha just said, Techstars is actually Boulder-based. Our headquarters is right in the shadows of CU Boulder. I spoke at Leeds in person last year. I also had the good fortune to have the University of Colorado system as just one of 10 pilot partnerships that I negotiated while I was at LinkedIn to test out free university-related products to their alumni and students. So you are one of my favorite universities in the world. Happy to be doing something like this. Just to give you an idea of where I'm at right now, I'm sitting in Berlin, literally in between the former divide, the wall in East Germany and West Germany, in a entrepreneurial enclave called The Factory, which happens to be the home base of SoundCloud and Uber and Twitter in Europe. Yesterday, I spoke in Cape Town, South Africa, which is quite a ways away. Day before that, I flew from Boston to get to Cape Town. So I'm operating off about 4 hours sleep. I've slept over 2 nights on planes. But wouldn't miss this for the world. Absolutely love talking about LinkedIn and how you can benefit from it personally and professionally. I'm going to focus really on 4 main things during this presentation: how you can navigate the new UI, UX on LinkedIn to access people, to access companies, to access jobs, and to access universities and university data, and essentially leverage your alumni base effectively to find opportunity. I'll also go a little bit through developing an effective profile, just some tips and tricks that you can utilize that I've learned along the way. But I want to start with what I think is one of the most important things that LinkedIn has, which is the ability to access your network out of LinkedIn. So it's portability of relationships. So I'm going to go up here to my network. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to take me into all the people that I'm connected to and the people who are asking me to connect with them lately. If I go into the See All, it's going to create another page, and on the right-hand side, I'm going to see this area that says Manage Synced and Imported Contacts. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to take me to another page. And on the bottom right-hand side of that page, there's an area called Export Contacts. If I click on that, it's going to create a page that it says, do you want a fast file? I can request that. And what it will do is it'll send me a CSV file, it's a fancy term for Excel, of all the relationships at a first level that I have on LinkedIn. So it'll give me the name of the person, their title, their company, their industry, their email address, and I'll have that out of the LinkedIn system. Essentially, it's an Excel spreadsheet. and I can do anything I want with that information. One of the things that I would recommend you do is to sort it by industry and company, so you can see all the industries and companies that you connect into, those areas that you're strong on relationships, and those areas that you're weak in relationships. So it allows you to effectively create a SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for relational capital. No other social medium allows you to do this, and you saw how difficult it was to find this. Make sure that you are downloading this information on a regular basis, just so you have access to all that for yourself. I'm going to go back to the home page, and I want to kind of set the stage of what I'm going to talk about today. I really want to leave you with 3 takeaways, and I like doing it at the beginning of the presentation and then reinforcing it as we go along. But I'm a huge believer of building a network before you need it, so it's there when you do. And the idea is, you may be in a specific industry right now, but say that industry starts to lose jobs, or the company that you're in starts to lay off people. If you haven't connected to other industries, if you haven't connected to other job types, essentially you don't have the network that will help you get the next opportunity. So I implore you to take that as an approach. The second one is to build a quality relational network, not a quantity one. When I was at LinkedIn, we looked at the 4 main affiliations that create an effective relational network, and essentially they're friends and family. Problem with friends and family is a lot of times that network isn't big enough to help you out or aligned with what you do. Second affiliation is university affiliation, buffs helping buffs. Third is shared work experience. And fourth is board work, committee work, causes, essentially volunteerism. If you build a network based on those, it's going to be an accessible network because those people have an invested interest in you. The last thing, I'm a huge believer in enabling people to view opportunity, essentially to have the audacity to dream big. I shouldn't be where I'm at right now as a global network catalyst, cross-connecting entrepreneurs around the world, mentors and investors. Prior to that, I was the higher education evangelist at LinkedIn. I probably shouldn't have been in that role. I was director of Alumni Career Services before that. Probably shouldn't have been in that role, but I worked my way into each one of those situations. I visioned that there was an opportunity there. I built the relationships in that space, leveraged those relationships to make that happen. And that's available to each and every one of you on this call. So let's go in and start to break down LinkedIn by category, especially those 4 categories that I talked about earlier. We're going to go into search. LinkedIn has eliminated advanced search, but they've delineated network and access to people into specific categories. So you've got people, jobs, posts, companies, groups, schools, and I'm going to show you how to use 4 of these pretty effectively. We'll start with people. Right now, and I'm going to reset this because an area didn't come up, you're going to see all of my first and second level connections on LinkedIn. And on the right-hand side, these are the 1,080,000 people I can reach either directly or through a connection of a connection. I want to talk about second level connections for just 1 second. If I built a good first level relationship with somebody, so like Brent Grinna was the reason that I'm in my job right now at Techstars, he introduced me into the organization. If I ask him to connect me with somebody he's connected to at a second level connection, he's likely to do it. That person in a second level connection is likely to respond back to me based on the build of relationships that both Brent and I have done. There's a high velocity of connectivity between those 3 people. That connection of a connection, that second level connection, Reid Hoffman wrote a book about that person. He called him a weak tie. Essentially what he said was 85% of job opportunities through relational networking come out of not who you know, but who they know, connection of a connection. And so if you build that quality first level connection, they're likely to give you access to the people who are going to create opportunities for you on your next job or your next ability to promote product and service. And the beautiful thing about the tools that they give you here is I can break it down into, say, specific areas. So if I wanted to look at, say, the greater Denver area, I could look at my network specifically in that marketplace. And I've got 1.2 million people total, and I'm going to bring it down into first and second level connections. So I live in Boston, Massachusetts, but I've got the ability to reach 19,000 people at a first or second level connection in that marketplace. I can break it down even more specifically into, say, specific industry. So I come out of the IT area, information technology and services, so I can look at the 1,800 people who are related to that. that are connected to me at a first or second level. And then I can take it down even broader. So I could look at University of Colorado Boulder and the 228 people I'm connected to at CU Boulder that live in the Denver area that are a first or second level connection. Why is that important? I can access these people to help me get to where I want to go, whether it's positioning my institution with these people or myself individually. And so, for instance, I could look at Elise, who's a second level connection. She's hiring, so reach out, market development at Cloud Elements. If I go onto her profile, I can see the 59 people we know in common, including Miha Baldwin, who's a good friend of mine, who I'm going to be on a conversation with tomorrow based on a new company that he's starting. So it gives me an idea to leverage the folks that are in my personal relationship to get into the folks that might be able to present opportunity to me. So I'm going to go back up into search, and I'm going to stop for a second and talk about effective profile. So I'm going to get back into this in just a second, but I'm going to go into my profile. And by the way, everything I'm showing you is on the basic level, not the paid version. So you can model everything that I'm showing you. But I'm a huge believer of a couple different things on your LinkedIn profile. So I'm going to scroll down, and you can see that LinkedIn has now made this a mobile-facing instead of a desktop-facing interface, which means it cuts off the summary that you used to have here into a shorter chunk. One thing I would say is all of you look at it, your own profile summary on your phone to see that it doesn't get cut off in a weird place, doesn't make you look bad on how it's related. But I'm a huge believer in your summary of showcasing who you are and what you want to be. So talk a little bit about the experiences you've had that make you worthwhile as a connection, but also talk about your aspirations. If I scroll down a little bit further, also believe that you should attach rich media to your profile. So showcase the things that you have done, showcase the categories or the rich media that represents who you are, videos of you talking, presentations that you've given, news articles that you have been showcased in, so that people can see more than what's just on a traditional resume or a CV. Scroll down a little bit further. I'm a big believer in positioning subject matter expertise in your profile. So this is you writing about the things that you know about. And for instance, I'm writing about how to use hustle to create opportunity, how to find your strength, how to succeed in unorthodox positions. Those are all things that represent my personal brand. People have an expectation of me talking about those things. It becomes my subject matter expertise. Subject matter expertise is actually something that I kind of picked up on about 4 years ago when I was doing work with MIT, and I found out that 35% of their alumni base works off contract, which means they don't specifically work in a corporation. They take their subject matter expertise and spin it in and out of companies and essentially act as an entrepreneur of one. I think that that is where the job workforce is going. And so those people with deep knowledge in a specific area are going to be the ones that are pulled into companies for short-term gainful employment. And this is an easy way for you to tell people what you know and what you stand for professionally. If I scroll down a little bit further, on your experience, don't do the bulleted resume. Do more of the narrative around yourself, who you are and what you're about. And then if you scroll down a little bit further, I'm a big fan of endorsements, showcasing what people are known for. When LinkedIn announced these originally, they had some hiccups. And I'm sure if I asked you guys to show hands of how many of you have been endorsed for a skill or expertise by somebody in your network who has no idea you have that skill or expertise, almost all of you would raise that your hand. On the individual level, take these aside. In the aggregate, this does a good job of defining who you are personally and professionally. So you can see mine are social media, public speaking, social media marketing. If I scroll down a little bit further, you can see all the categories that I'm endorsed in: public relations, strategy, social networking, higher education, leadership, career development, entrepreneurship. Those are all categories I've played in at a high level, and my network is reinforcing that I have those experiences. If you're looking at how to develop a narrative around who you are professionally, your network's telling you how to do that. Take these in aggregate, the high levels, and use this information in your elevator pitch or in your summary to showcase who you are and to reinforce what's happening within your endorsements. Conversely, if you're looking for mentorship from people within your network, if they're endorsed at a high level in some of the categories that you want mentorship in, chances are they're probably a pretty good mentor to attach into. So it's a good way to source out people who have the expertise or acumen in the spaces you want to learn from. Now, if I scroll back up to the top, I'm going to jump back into the home page, go back into search for a little bit. And I'm going to go back to the second category that I talked about, which was essentially university affiliation, which I think is one of the most effective affiliations to play off of. So I'm going to go to schools, and I'm going to play off of Boulder. Should take me to University of Colorado Boulder. It did. And it's going to take me to the university page for University of Colorado Boulder. There's also a Leeds page, so you can go on that as well. But this is a bigger network to look at aggregate data from. When I click on this, it takes me into what's called the Alumni tool. It shows 181,000 buffs by where they live, where they work, and what they do. So if you're somebody like me, you want to break into San Francisco. I lived there for a while when I worked for LinkedIn. I want to see all of the other buffs that are there that work in San Francisco. What's going to happen, it's going to change where they work and what they do. And I'm really interested in, say, getting into business development. So I want to look at the 1,400 people in San Francisco that are in business development. And then the 14 people who work at Google that are in business development in San Francisco that graduated from University of Colorado. And you know what? I'm a young alumni, so I only want to look at the ones that graduated in the last 4 years. So I do the search there, and there are none. So we're going to take that out. Let's go 1999 to 2000. And now I've got 5. And if I scroll down below, I can actually see who those people are and how I relate to them, connections I have in common with those people. So I can play off those first level connections to get me into these second level connections. It'll also tell me if any of these people went to the same university I did. So if they were buffs and I graduated from University of Colorado Boulder, it will show that on these profiles. Unbelievable resource to source out university connectivity to help you for opportunity. So I'm going to do a hypothetical. You guys are obviously not in front of me. I can't see you. But if there was a student from Leeds, if there was a student from CU that picked up the phone and gave you a call, said, hey, I want to learn a little bit more about who you are and what you're about. By a show of hands, how many of you would raise your hands? And I'm envisioning that most of you will, and if you're not raising your hands, you're going to go to hell. And I'm just kidding, I don't have that power. But the point being that I pretty much can guarantee in your room right now, you were thinking about raising your hand or did raise your hand because there's an emotional tie to the institution. That network, that tie to the institution is available at people who work at other companies and other organizations. And so say I really wanted to work at Salesforce, I'm going to take this out. Whoops. I'm going to go back here, click on Salesforce. I'm going to take Google out. I'm going to take business development out. If I really wanted to work for Salesforce or I wanted to position product and service at Salesforce, I've got the 36 alumni that work at Salesforce that live in the Bay Area, and I'm essentially trying to take a cold call into a warm call using affiliation, in this case university, to make the call more likely to go through or take the barrier of entry down. And I can see all these people who are related to me that work there that I might be able to pick up the phone and give a call to. Unbelievably powerful tool that I can use to connect into folks. If any of you are hiring, this is also a great tool to hire. So say you were in the Denver area and you're looking for people with a specific acumen in information technology, space I'm in. I can look at the 2,600 people there. I can go over here and look at those people who graduated in computer science. 246 live in Denver and work in information technology, graduated in computer science. And I want to go old school, so I'm going to look at those folks that have Linux experience. If I scroll down, I've got those 91 alumni that fit that. I can start to recruit these people based on connections and affiliations to fill gaps in my organization, essentially become a headhunter of one. Beautiful thing to do. So I'm going to come up here to jump out of universities. We're going to go back to that general search, and we're going to look at jobs. And the cool thing about jobs is they also show the relationships that you have and by specific things. So Instead of United States, I'm going to take this down to Denver and just look at the jobs that are available in Denver right now. There's 51,000. I just say, for me, I'm the former higher education evangelist at LinkedIn. I want to look at evangelist jobs in Denver, and they're 26. And here I can see that I've got 20 connections that work at Amazon that I can reach out to and attach to. Here I've got 8. Here I've got 6 alumni from the university I graduated from, Michigan State University, that can get me into Digital Globe. So I can start to play off personal relationships to get my resume or my LinkedIn profile in front of people to help me out. And just one caveat on the resume LinkedIn profile thing, a lot of people duplicate what they do on their resume and their LinkedIn profile. If you do that, like invariably if you submit your resume, HR managers are going to look at your LinkedIn profile as well. If you have the same data there, you've missed a chance to second sell yourself. Use that rich media. Use a different narrative that still encapsulates who you are professionally on your LinkedIn profile to increase the chances that they're going to consume some information that makes you an interesting candidate to bring into their organization. But this is a heck of a way to tap into those folks that can help you out. And I can see who those alumni are that work at LinkedIn, that work at the specific company that related to the jobs. This one actually is the VP of Total Rewards and HR Operations. So she works in the space that's going to make the decision of whether to hire me or not. Really powerful. So I'm going to go reset again, and I'm going to go into companies. And I want to talk about companies broad-based on LinkedIn. There are 14.5 million, almost 15 million companies that have a profile here. Deep information on every one of those. So say I wanted to work for one of our Techstars companies, SendGrid. Let's see. Let me type that all the way in. And I can go onto the company page at SendGrid. And I've got some great information. I've got an overview. If I click on that, it tells me what the culture of the company is. Say I'm positioning product and service to sell in here. If I read this, I'm getting the nomenclature, I'm getting the rhetoric that the company uses to talk about itself. If I use some of that same information when positioning product and service, I'm going to be more effective in that pitch because I'm talking in the same language. Conversely, if I'm looking for a job, I use that same approach to find out how they talk about themselves, use ways that I reinforce the values of that company in the interview process. I increase the chances of myself getting a job there. I can see what it's like to be a fit there, what the life is like to work at a company like SendGrid, get a little bit of an about us. I've got recent updates so I can see what that company is like. I'm really interested in working at SendGrid, but I might be interested in working companies that are similar to that. If I scroll down, I can see the 6 companies that are most similar to SendGrid based on users clicking on SendGrid and all of these different companies. And then if I click on this, I can see all the employees that are on SendGrid. 407, I can look at first and second level connections, which are direct connections that I want to be attached to. So 210 within the organization. And I might look for those people who graduated from CU Boulder. And there are 22 that I could reach out with and play off personal connections or affiliations to get into the company. So what I might do here is look for people who are in specific categories like sales, business development, marketing, communication, PR, and social, people who sell messaging for a living. If I find somebody who graduated from CU Boulder who fits in one of those categories, pick up the phone and give them a call. They sell messaging for a living. If they like me, they're effective selling me within the company, potentially get me down into HR. I become an internal referral, increases my chances of getting a job there, find out who's interviewing me, look at their profile. For the first time in history, I have the resume of the person interviewing me. I can play off that information to create opportunity for myself during the interview process, increase the chances that I get hired at that place. You can do the same exact thing if you're positioning product and service, trying to build a rapport with that company, playing off affiliation. So I'm going to jump up into one last thing. So I did people, jobs, companies, and schools. I'm going to go back to the home page and show you one of the areas that I think has been pretty dynamic that LinkedIn has added that a lot of people are unaware of. They have a complete learning center to help you access knowledge on specific skill sets. Essentially, you can develop your own continuing education program. So you can create interest in specific skills. So you say you're interested in management or blogging or career counseling. If you jump back into that from a topical perspective, it's going to bring up all of the video archived tutorials of people who fit that information. You can view these and learn from other people who are in the space that might be able to help advance who you are personally and professionally. Totally effective, really cool thing to use. Back on the homepage, I can see the amount of people who have viewed my latest article that I posted on LinkedIn, so that subject matter expertise. I can see those people who have viewed my profile. If you don't have the upgraded version, you get a truncated view list of people who connect into you. All those people can be enabled as personal ambassadors. Essentially, they've raised their hand of interest in what you're presenting in some way, shape, or form. Figure out how to mobilize those people to help you out. They may be in some of the companies you want to reach into. They may be in some of the industries you're interested in. They may be in some of the jobs you want. And this is a good way to be able to visualize those people that can help move you forward. One last thing, I'm a huge believer in celebrating people's professional accomplishments. It's an easy way to continually feed your network and keep it fresh. If you come up to notifications, you can see really 5 major things. People who have had birthdays, people who have work anniversaries, people who have new jobs, people who've moved from one area to another, people who have been mentioned in the news. Things like work anniversaries, I'll send a congratulatory note. Things like people who've moved from one location to another or have moved into a new job. If I know people in the company they're going into, I'll intro them. If I know people where they're moving, I'll intro those people to those people. I love connecting. I'm a big believer in give to your network, no expectation of receiving. Karma's a beautiful thing, swings back at you, but it's an easy way to continually feed your network and celebrate it. People have been mentioned in the news, you can socialize it. And a given day, I'll do this about 20 times. Over the course of the year, I'll end up celebrating my network about 7,000 times. And it's such an easy thing to do. And if I pick up the phone and give one of these people a call in 6 months, invariably some of them will remember that I celebrated that accomplishment, which is not why I do it. But again, it keeps me front of mind with connections that might be beneficial in the future. So I'm going to step back for a second and reinforce what I said at the beginning. Certainly, build a network before you need it so it's there when you do. Secondly, build a quality relational network, not a quantity relational network. And thirdly, and most importantly, you have the pathways of 450 million people and how they got into the jobs they wanted. You have the pathways of a couple 100,000 people that are related to CU or Leeds and how they got into the jobs that you may want. Have the audacity to dream big. Take those steps to find the opportunities that you want. And again, as I said, I'm a living, breathing example of somebody who's visualized work network to get into the roles that I'm in currently. So Samantha, I'll turn it back to you. We can take a Q&A. I think we're like right at that 30-minute mark that we had talked about, and we'll go from there.
Great. Thanks so much, John, for all of this information. I've got some robust notes myself here to go work on my profile after this webinar. So we do have a few questions here, and just to remind everyone, if you do have questions for John, please send those through the chat interface. So John, actually, if you could review this, you had talked about being able to export your connections out of LinkedIn at the beginning of the presentation. Do you mind going through those steps quickly once more for anyone who joins later?
It's like magic. I only do it once. No, I'm just kidding. Of course I will. So you can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Samantha, you can still see my screen? Okay, so if I click on my network up here, if I go to see all, and if I go over to this right-hand area, manage synced and imported contacts, and if I scroll down, export contacts, and that takes me to the page that allows me to do a fast file. All I have to do is request archive, and it gets emailed to me. And that's it.
Great, thanks so much. And I think your internet might be catching up, or your web page might be catching up with us here. Okay, now we've got it where it's down at the bottom, advanced options. Great, thank you. And then you had talked about reaching out to first level connections and second level connections
Yep.
and making that introduction. Do you have any pointers on how to approach making those connections and how to introduce
Totally.
yourself to ask for? Do you have any examples?
Yep, totally. So, again, I'm a huge believer in bringing a cold call into a warm call, trying to find those like interests that bring the barrier of entry to a call down. Um, but I just want to kind of step back for a second. The most effective way to communicate with somebody is face to face. Second most effective way to communicate with somebody is phone to phone or web-based communication tools that act like phones, things like Hangout or Skype. And then the least effective way to communicate with somebody is email, and even further down there I would say are things like LinkedIn, InMail. If you really want to reach somebody, use LinkedIn as a data tool, but take this into a Google search. Find out where these, the email address directly for that person, their phone number, or better yet, the circles that they travel in, that you might be able to connect into those folks with in person through relationships you have. But here's how I would use the narrative, like playing off a university affiliation. Say I found somebody who went to CU that works at Google, and I want to reach out to them. Invariably, I'm going to try to track down a phone number, or at least an introduction into them. And in that introduction into them through somebody in my network that went to CU or worked with me in the past, or I have a deep tie to, or if I get them on the phone, I might say something like this: my name's John Hill. I'm a graduate of CU Boulder. Really interested in who you are and what you're about. Just wonder if you take a few minutes to talk to me about that. In that two-sentence structure, you've done two very powerful things. One, you position them as the expert in themselves. People love to be the experts in themselves. It's a conversation extender. Secondarily, you played into that same reason you would raise your hand to help out a student from CU. It's buffs helping buffs. You've tapped into an emotional connection from an alumni perspective. Is it an absolute that everybody will answer those calls if you pick up the phone and give them a call? No. Does it increase the odds that they will pick up? Yes. And the more affiliations you can find to somebody, the more likely they are to answer the call to you. And then just one last thing, Samantha, because I didn't really cover this, but I'm a big believer in this. Surround yourself with the people that you want to be. So get connected to those folks that are in the industries, into the jobs, network into the places that invariably you want to work at. It is actually easier to find a job through relational networking than it is to blindly apply for positions. And we all know that. Essentially, if you can position yourself as an internal referral, you help yourself by something X amount of getting called back for an interview in that situation than if you just try to go in the front door. In my mind, the front door is broken, and the traditional ways to find jobs are not the ways that you should be going about it. Utilizing relationships to find opportunity is the best way to go.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John. And then another question came up from a couple folks regarding your personal profile. You had mentioned that you feel that it's better to write a narrative about your experiences as opposed to bulleting your accomplishments and responsibilities. Can you expand a little bit more on why and why you found that to be a best practice?
Yeah, I usually follow up pretty quickly on that about the differentiation between the resume and the LinkedIn profile and the opportunity to second sell yourself. If you're bulleting everything on your resume, you're bulleting everything on your LinkedIn profile. Essentially what you're doing is doubling up on the content and not positioning yourself more effectively for an organization you want to work at. The other thing is the medium. It's a content-rich medium, and bullet points, although succinct, don't really tell a story. So if you can tell a story around the work that you do and showcase the accomplishments through that storytelling, far more powerful to the individual user, more likely to be consumed and remembered than those bullet points.
Great, thanks so much. And then a question on the university pages. Do you, actually asking to review, do you mind going back and reviewing where individuals can find those university pages and then alumni that are connected to those pages?
Yeah, so I just clicked on the search button. And then if you go over to schools, you can look at all 56,000 schools. So if you've gone to multiple universities to date, you can search for whatever university you want. And then I just searched Boulder because I knew it would come up with CU Boulder. And then it takes me into this university page, which is a general page for the institution. Here are the career insights. It's essentially the alumni tool, but I can also click on this to go into the alumni tool. And I can see the 181,000 people by where they live, where they work, what they do. And I'll give you like a way that I would use this personally. I work with early seed stage tech companies. One of the most important things they need is capital, so they need to raise money. So I might look at the, say, 9,755 people that went to CU Boulder that live in San Francisco, because that's a money epicenter. I might look at the 1,158 that are related to entrepreneurship. If I scroll over here, do next. Let's see if it comes up. It does not. So I'm going to type in the word venture to do a general search. And it comes down to 128. I'm going to go back here because this is what they're skilled at. These are essentially their endorsements, and 70 people come up on that search under venture capital. I'm going to take out venture because I was just using that as a search term to find venture capital. And I've got the 70 people that are related to CU. Let's see. That resets it. 70 people that are related to CU have venture capital on their profile, are in the category of entrepreneurship in the Bay Area. And again, I can see who those people are and how I relate to each one of them. So Dave Marin, who works at a company, I think it was Path, and he was an early employee at Facebook, is one of yours. And I've got 45 connections that connect me into Dave, including the person who hired me into LinkedIn. So I know he would be a good person to get into where I want to get. Potentially would invest into my company, and I could play off that CU, helping CU mentality to raise some funds for the organization that I'm supporting. So that's like just another example of how you could use this.
Great, thanks so much. And one question came up here about connections. You had mentioned during your presentation that you believe quality over quantity of connections is best with LinkedIn. So do you ever suggest periodically going through and reviewing who you're connected with and removing those who you're not sure why you've been connected or don't have a real connection anymore?
Yeah, I'll attack this on two fronts. Certainly prune your network, because I think it goes back to if you have quality first level connections, they get you into quality second level connections. But the second thing is I think social media has conditioned us to think we need to connect with everybody. If you get a connection request from somebody and you can't figure out how they're connected to you, I would make it analogous to like if I came off the street towards you and you didn't know who I was and I said, I want to know you and everybody you know. In that situation, you would like hit me or run away screaming or whatever, because I'd be that crazy guy. But you know, on LinkedIn, you think about it because social media has said you've got to connect with everybody, and I give you permission not to connect with everybody in this space. In fact, quite the opposite. Build the network how you do offline, online, because that's going to be the most effective network. Now, that being said, if somebody like Elon Musk reaches out to you and says, hey, I want to connect with you, it's probably a good idea to do that. But outside of those kind of one-off scenarios, for the most part, try to model your approach to network offline, online.
So the question is, on the LinkedIn profile, you had talked about endorsements. Do you mind expanding on recommendations, both receiving them and writing them, and the importance of those?
So recommendations are a little bit different. They're more robust, and those are personalized. I'm not a believer in the quid pro quo. So, you know, you giving a recommendation to somebody so that they'll give a recommendation back. They're better if they're organic. Recruiters will actually tell you that they sometimes check to see if that's all a person has done is quid pro quo on recommendations, and then they'll essentially nullify them as important in the process. So I think giving them is effective as long as you don't go overboard in the amount that you give. But if you genuinely believe that somebody deserves a nod, go ahead and do it. On the reverse side, accept the ones that you want to accept going in, showcase the ones that you want to showcase, because those are more important representations of your personal and professional character, because those people are now directly linked to you based on some narrative on your profile. So I would take more weight in those, specifically if they're not quid pro quo.
Okay, interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then another question on profiles. So sometimes individuals have their resume uploaded to their LinkedIn profile. What is your recommendation on that?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think it's the ability for people to get a rounder view of who you are and what you're about, specifically if you're in the job search. If you're not in the job search, I don't think it's as necessary, but if it's there, I don't think it's harmful. I do think it's, again, it gives you a deeper representation of who you are from a professional brand perspective, and that's only a good thing.
Great, thank you. And then you also, so we do have a couple more questions on your personal profile and building that out coming in. So you had talked about the summary and writing about your expertise and your aspirations. If you're new in an industry, how would you recommend framing your expertise?
Yeah, so that's always an interesting question because people have more expertise than they lead on. If you've gone through leads, you've potentially gone through case competitions, you've developed teamwork by working in group settings. Those are things to showcase. They're important. You've probably had an internship and experiential activities that you can encapsulate and then take the learnings that are applicable to the next job you want to have. Those are the ones you spotlight. If they're not, like a lot of people try to jump industry and they don't know how to position themselves to jump that industry, become a generalist in what you learned, things about strategy and teamwork, showcase those instead of the specific field you were in if you want to go into another field. And the summary is a great way to position that, and especially position how those skill sets could leapfrog you into different positions in the future. And Samantha, before we get going too far and before we lose some people, I'm at Techstars John, John. That's TECHSTARS JOHN on Twitter. I'm happy to carry conversation further on something like Twitter down the road. So don't feel like we're confined by this time and space. I answer questions on that all the time, especially through direct message.
Great, thanks so much for the offer. And what was your Twitter handle again, just in case if folks didn't catch it?
Yeah, it's Techstars John, TECHSTARS JOHN.
Great, thank you. And then another question on the profile. So you showed us how to search for alumni on university pages, but how can you ensure that your education is listed correctly on your profile in order to be pulled into those university pages?
Yeah, so if you go into edit profile and you go down to the education system, and it usually says it does say add education or change education. If you haven't put CU on your profile, it will select from an auto file that we built, the team I was on at LinkedIn built, that represents every university in the world. So Leeds is on there, CU is on there, you select the ones that are applicable to you, and that's what ends up giving you access to things like the alumni tool to view directly off your profile. But you can search any of these even if you don't have them on your profile, similar to what I just did with CU, and I went to Michigan State University.
Great, thanks. And then one more question for you, John, before we wrap up the webinar today. If there's one thing that everybody on this webinar can go and do right now to either change or ensure that they've got it set on their personal profile, what would that be?
Yeah, so I'm not going to say it's one thing. I think it's an ongoing thing. Every time you make a change to your profile, so it could be right now, it could be a week from now, it could be put in a tickler file, so it's regularly every week. If you update something, if you add something to your profile, if you haven't turned it off in preferences, it alerts your whole network that you've made changes. All that does is open up the door for people to review your profile again, potentially look at you, potentially reach out and create opportunities for you. It's, again, a passive way to reach connections and audience that are in your network to elevate and help you out. And again, through all of this, this is what you put into it, which is every job. And I'm a big believer in the ability to out hustle people. I've run across people who are way more credentialed than I was, or way more politically connected, or had a much better paper resume, but I was able to beat people out for the roles that I've had because of hustle. And that's the thing you can control. And keeping up to date on your professional media view is all about hustle. It's all about just taking the time to do it. Keeping your network evergreen is all about hustle. It's all about taking the time to do it. And I just know that I will beat other people to doing that. And that mindset is helpful for me. And I think it's something that could be replicated by others.
Great. Well, thank you so much again, John, and thank you so much to everyone for joining us for today's presentation. To view upcoming webinars and request previous recordings, please visit our website at www.colorado.edu/alumni/webinars. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great rest of your day, and go Buffs.